you never know what the man's going to say. You probably all know that very well. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm going to tell you, Eddie's right. This, what I'm going to do for you today, what we're going to talk about a little bit here today, is just a tidbit of what we spend sometimes half a day on, or I was just talking to Dave about another presentation that I do. This is a week-long program that we do on leadership, but I really appreciate the opportunity. And one of the reasons I appreciate it so much is because of what ADP means to this community. As I look around this room, as I walk around the facility, I see a lot of people from the community that I know, and the people that I don't know I have an opportunity to meet very quickly, and it's very evident for me that there's a good culture being created here, and you can feel that positive energy there. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and also to be around people that I love and adore, like Miss Mulvihill. I told her I would say that when I got up here.
I love you too, Scott.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. That's right. I love her husband too. He's actually one of my best friends, but he's not here, so it's between she and I right now. But when thinking about what I want to talk about for just 20 minutes or so, I really wanted to touch on creating that legacy leadership legacy. And when you are given the opportunity to talk at any place, you got to do a little background. You got to try to figure out kind of what the organization is all about. And obviously, when you look at Taub Talks, you find out Henry Taub, the founder of ADP, is the reason which this continues to happen today. And when I didn't know much about Henry Taub, obviously, but I took the time to research it to find out. And what a legacy that man left. And I think we are all enjoying parts of that legacy even today as a result of his leadership. So certainly he has one. So what is it for us? How do we create our legacy of leadership? I think the first thing we have to do is we have to fill in that dash. That's how you create that legacy leadership. So whether it's 2016, whether you're starting out today as a manager, supervisor, or a leader in your own right, whatever that may be. And by the way, everybody's a leader in some way, shape, or form. You don't necessarily have to have a title. You don't have to have rank. A lot of times you're just going to fill in those shoes, and you're going to provide leadership for something or somebody, or for some people. And then obviously that role is going to pass on, or you're going to die at some point. So really it's everything that you did in between. From the time you really took on that role to the time that you stopped that particular role, or the time that you die, or whatever the case may be, it's filling in that dash. That's your leadership legacy as far as we're concerned. So how do I go about that? What do I do on a daily basis? I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to notice that it's something that you have to have, and it's important. If you don't take anything away from this today, I want you to take away this. I'm going to tell you all about the secret society of they. Anybody ever heard of the secret society of they? Well, you always are told, well, they said we can't do it this way, or they said that we can't do that, or they said that we had to park here, or they said... So I set out on this journey to try to figure out who they was. Because I've been told my entire career that they said that I couldn't do something, or they said that I had to do something. So the more I searched, the more I found that there really was no one they. And they was really more of another way of describing the leadership. Whether it's frontline leadership, senior management, executive management, doesn't matter. Everybody is they. Everybody that's not on the bottom rung of the ladder is they. Everybody. Because you have some influence in the organization. And so it's important for you to understand that you're part of they, because you're being blamed for it. And if you're being blamed for it, then certainly it's your responsibility to try to make it better for the people that are depending on you to make decisions. So what is it? I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Really, it's just nothing more than getting people to achieve common goals through the exertion of power and influence. Now, some would argue, well, no, you really shouldn't say anything about power. Well, power is part of it. Leadership, you have to have a certain level of power, and you don't necessarily have to have, again, the title or the rank. You can have power over somebody and not have that, and I'm going to show that to you in just a second. But more importantly, leadership is really nothing more than influence. Getting somebody else to do what you need them or want them to do. And if you can do that, then you're going to be creating that legacy that we're talking about. Here's a good question for you. How do you properly motivate others? All the leaders in the room, how do you motivate other people? What can we do to motivate people? Recognition? Incentives? Pay raises, parking spaces, being appreciative.
Developing relationships.
I agree with all those. Well, I take a totally different stand on this, and in my week-long presentation that Dave and I are going to talk about, we spent a lot of time on motivational theory and how motivation works and how you can do it. I will submit to you that if you're truly leading, you don't have to motivate anybody. You don't have to. If you're truly leading, you don't have to. And let me submit this just a little bit further and let you chew on this for just a second. I can tell you that psychologically, you cannot motivate anybody to do anything. Motivation comes from one place, within an individual. I can change their circumstances to make them want to be motivated to do something, but I can't physically motivate anybody to do anything. I can force them to do something, but is that motivation? No. I can beat them repeatedly until they do it. Is that motivation? I'm not motivating them to do it. They have to be motivated enough to have the beating stop, and then they'll go do it. Y'all with me? So that's how motivation works. And for leaders, a lot of times we're being told, you need to motivate somebody. I need you to motivate your team. Well, don't go tell your boss, well, I can't, because Scott Johnson said that I can't motivate anybody. Motivation comes within. There are things that you can do to help with motivation, but it does come from within. So here's a good question. Great leaders, are they born or are they made?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, some are born, some are made. For people to say that you have to be a born leader, that would negate every great leadership book out there. People are trying to develop themselves. So I think there's certainly an opportunity there. And then on the other side, there are people that are just born with it, that have a natural talent, and they understand it, and they never read a self-help book in their life, and they just do a great job at it. So I think it can be both. But one thing's for sure, whether they're born or whether they're made, all the great leaders of our time share some common traits. So I set out on a journey to try to identify those common traits, to try to figure out what is it that makes those great leaders great. And what I found out is leadership is not so much what you're doing as it is who you are as an individual. See, here's the thing. It's not a science. If it were a science, then there would be a 12-step process, and we would all go by the one book that identified the 12 steps, and we would all take those 12 steps, and then we would all be great leaders on the backside of that and create this lasting legacy of leadership. But can we buy that book? I'm still trying to find the 12. If I can make it a science, I'm going to sell the book. But I don't think I can, because I think it's an art. I think everybody sees it, feels it differently. Everybody deals with it differently. So it's not so much what you're doing. It's not so much are you properly motivating, or are you properly changing circumstances to motivate, or it's not those things. Are you providing enough recognition? Those are all important things, but it's not so much that as it is who you are inside. Because who you are inside will determine whether or not that's an easy process for you or whether you're faking it. And your employees and your people around you will know if you are. All kinds of leaders out there. I think there's really three that I really want to point at, three types of leaders that I want to point out. First are leaders of authority. Here's a couple of leaders of authority for you. People follow these leaders why? Followed, in this case. Follow these leaders why? Fear. Fear and intimidation. Do you have any leaders in your organization that people follow because they're scared of them? And shake your head like this, because you do. You do. Every organization does. Every organization does. There are people that rule this way. There are people that rise to power because they have the rank, because they have the privilege, because they have the seniority or whatever. You do what I tell you to do. If not, I will rip off your head. And people believe that. So these are leaders of authority. We follow these people out of fear. And there are people in your organization that people are following out of fear. This is not one that I want to be. Okay? By the way, when do people stop following people of authority? When they're dead, but when really do they stop? When they're no longer scared of you. When they realize that you literally can't rip my head off. When do your children, when you're disciplining your children, if I constantly tell them, and I tell my wife this all the time, one of Cheryl's very best friends, I tell her this all the time, she's watched us parent. So it's a hoot now, because I'm the psychology guy in this thing, and Susan. But is that... I'm sure she'll watch this. I love you. Sorry about that. That was a commercial. I won't charge you anymore for the commercial that I just did for my wife. But if you tell your child the next time you jump on the couch, I'm going to give you 30 days in the electric chair. Okay? The next time they jump on the couch, guess what you got to do? You got to go put them in the electric chair. That's what you got to do. Because if you tell them you're going to do something and then don't, guess what? You've lost that battle, right? So you got to follow through whatever it is. So we got to make sure the punishment fits the crime. Okay? In leadership, it's the same way. You can't tell your people, if you do this again, you're going to be fired. Well, if they do it again, you don't fire them. Guess what? You're losing respect on a daily basis, right? Leaders of authority do this, and when people are no longer scared of you, and they realize that you don't have the power that you thought you had, or they thought you had, guess what? They quit following you. And now you have splinter groups, and you have people trying to assassinate you, which, by the way, happened in both of these cases, and I'll give you a lot more. But this is the dime version, so I can't go into it. Charismatic leaders. These people we don't follow because we're scared of them. Why do we follow these people? Why do people follow Charles Manson? Attraction? What else? Why? They liked him. He is a psychopathic killer, although he never killed anybody personally that we know of. But he influenced other people to do that. So was he a leader? Yes. Did he ever hold a knife to anybody's throat or a gun to their head and said, you're going to go do this? If not, so they weren't scared of him. He never did that, by the way. He influenced them. People liked him. I think about the cult leaders like the Branch Davidians, David Koresh. Y'all remember that whole thing that happened out there in Waco? You know, people they flocked to this guy. Why? Because they believed his message, okay? And they liked him. So they followed him. They'd do anything for him. Go off a cliff. Allow their kids to be shot up. And arm their children. Why? Because they liked this guy. Steve Jobs. Although he was authoritative at times, was Steve Jobs a very authoritative leader? No. He was a very charismatic. I want to be like Steve. I want to do what Steve does. Great leader. Developed great products. Had a great team of people around him. Okay? So contrast this now, charismatic leaders who people follow them because they like them. Authoritative leaders, people follow because they're scared of them. Right? So when they're no longer scared, they no longer follow them. So what happens in this case? When do they no longer follow you? When they no longer like you. Do you have any charismatic leaders in your organization? Do you have anybody that you don't like that works here? Say yes, you do. You have people that you don't like that work here in leadership positions. I don't like them. Why? Whatever reason, they did something. So guess what? That charisma does nothing for me anymore. I'm not following you. I have no respect for you. So how do we get to, what's the third level and how do we get to respect? Leaders of character. These are people that have done things, great things for themselves, great things for their organizations, great things for other people. And people don't follow these. The followers here are not following because they're scared. And they're not following because they really like them, because a lot of times they did things that they didn't like. And I could give you a whole list. These are just a couple. These are character leaders. And the reason people follow them is because they believe in the person and they what? Respect them. And as a leader of character, that's what I want. The people that I work with and work for and work around, the only thing and honestly, respect is kind of what I'm looking for at the end of the day. Because I know I'm going to do things that make people not like me. We all have that, right? We got to do things that make people don't like us. And there are times that I'm going to have to be very authoritative and say, you're going to do it or, right? And people may be scared of their job, but I don't go around flaunting that stuff. I want people to follow me and buy into what I'm doing out of a respect. And the only way to get that respect is to have the character traits that are necessary to make those things work. Schwarzkopf said this. He said, leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character, but if you got to be without one, be without strategy. One of the most strategic minds of our time, as far as putting the battlefield plan together, said that I'd rather be without strategy than I would without character. That's how important it is. So what that tells me is in an organization, a corporation, or a government, wherever I am, is I can be without strategy as long as I have a good enough character. I can come in and get people to buy into what I'm doing. I can get this place headed in the right direction. And that's what we have to do. Whether it's this team, or whether it's this group, or whether it's this division, or whether it's this entire corporation. Doesn't matter. Be a great leader, you must be worthy of being followed. If you're going to be that great leader and create that lasting legacy, you have to be worthy of being followed. And a lot of times that takes time to earn that respect. And people are going to see it by what you do as far as your character is concerned. Socrates said this. He said, know thyself, because the unexamined life is not worth living. I read that small quote one time as I was putting together a leadership presentation. I said, this makes a lot of sense. I really need to take a step back instead of thinking, what do other people think about Scott Johnson? Scott Johnson himself needs to look I need to look inside and see, where are my character flaws? Where am I weak? What am I doing wrong? How could I be better? How can I better myself? And that's basically what Socrates was saying. You've got to take a step back sometimes and look in the mirror. And when I came up with this leadership model that I'm going to share with you real quick, this is exactly where this came from. Was standing in the mirror saying, what do I need to do better? I came up with what's called the internal leadership model. The internal leadership model, each one of these letters represents a word that is a character trait. And I took the 8 character traits that I thought best identified the best leaders of our times. And I've got to really fly through these, but I'm going to do them really quickly. Here are the words: integrity, nurturing, tactful, enthusiastic, responsible, nominal, accomplished, and loyal. These character traits, if I go back and look at all the great leaders and all the people that have had those lasting legacies, I will see that they had all of these character traits. I believe if I knew Henry Taub and I went back and really looked at his life and his story, I think I'd probably see a lot of these character traits in somebody like him. I've never read a book or anything like that, so I don't know. But I would guess, if he was that great of a leader, that I understand that he was, that I'd probably see a lot of these things. So what are they? Einstein said the most important human endeavor is striving for integrity in your actions. That everything else depends on that. And it adds beauty and dignity to our lives. I'll tell you that integrity is necessary for trust. As you're thinking about this, you're thinking about if you have any character flaws, think about integrity being necessary for trust, and understand that trust is something that you have to work at, and people will see it and they will know whether or not you have it. It's a choice. Every day you decide whether or not you want to uphold your integrity, or whether you want to lower your standards somehow and cheat, steal, lie, or whatever. That's a choice. Nobody's forcing you to compromise your integrity on a daily basis. You get to choose to do that. It's an action word. I can tell you all day long how honest I am. If you catch me in lies every 5 minutes, am I really being honest? No. So I can say it, but integrity is not saying, I have the utmost. I've heard people say that before in interviews. What's your best character trait? Well, I have the utmost integrity. Give me an example when you had a lapse of integrity. Well, I don't think I've ever had any of those. That was one. And integrity is much easier to attain than it is to regain. You all know how trust works, right? We just inherently trust people, especially over time. We inherently trust people until they do what? Something to make me no longer trust them. I got a whole long story and example I give for that, but I don't have time. It'll cut me off, and I won't get through all my letters, which will really bother me. Nurturing. Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. When I say nurturing as being a great leader and having this great leadership trait, I'm not talking about coddling. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about providing opportunities for the people below you and around you. Giving of yourself. It says, say, you know what? Instead of me going to this conference, I'm going to send 2 of my people to this conference in Vegas. Well, no, I really want to go myself. That's nurturing. Allowing other people to go. Giving up of yourself. Promoting unity. I have a whole different idea when it comes to unity and diversity. I think we can do so much better if we will spend a lot of time talking about how we are alike and how we are similar and how we need to work together and get along regardless of what my sex is, what my color of my skin is, what my religion is, where I went to high school, where I went to college. All those things don't matter as long as we're working together. You got to praise continuously, practice consistency. You got to be tactful. Tact's the art of making a point without making an enemy. When you're talking to your people, you got to be tactful. It means aiming for a win-win. Trying to find common ground. Having the correct assessment of the climate and the ability to maintain control of your emotions. If you ever let your emotions dictate your actions, you're headed down a wrong path. And it's gonna hurt. Enthusiastic. I love this. Vince Lombardi said this. If you aren't fired with enthusiasm, you'll be fired with enthusiasm. I subscribe to this. My folks know that work in Columbia County. They know that I'm an enthusiastic person. And to do that, you got to lead from the front. You got to formulate and maintain the vision. You got to work with your subordinates. Don't just go in your office and close your door and tell them what to do. They want to see you out there. They want to be a part of that. And I'll tell you this, active leaders are contagious. I saw it so many times in my career that if I would get out and do something, I would never have to go ask anybody else to do it. Before I knew it, I look around and people are joining me doing it. Because what do they say? Oh my gosh, the boss is out here doing it. We better step it up. It works. Never said a word about productivity. Being responsible. Theodore Roosevelt said that we all must face life with courage, win victory if you can, accept defeat if you must, but regardless, never seek to replace on a fellow man responsibility that's not his own. You've got to take responsibility for what you do if you're going to be a great leader and create this legacy. Enough to make that decision. You know how hard it is working for somebody that just will not make a decision? That's not a great leadership trait. They won't make a decision. They're not responsible enough to make a decision, right? To shoulder the blame when something goes wrong. To be worthy of the trust we talked about earlier and be responsible enough to carry the torch. Somebody that can take it to the next level for you and the organization. I love this one, being nominal. Abraham Lincoln wrote this letter to General George Meade as he marched towards Gettysburg, and basically what he said was, you will not be bothered by the government or by these headquarters. You're in charge, General Meade. And by the way, if you're a student of history, you'll know that General Meade made several mistakes. But beyond that, you had a president of the United States that said, this is the most important battle, one of the most important battles we've ever had, and guess what? You got it. It's all yours. You decide how we do it, how we tackle this goal. I would love to be able to have that. As a great leader, you have to be nominal. If I'm constantly towering over my people, telling them, do it this way, do it that way, micromanaging, which, by the way, that's what that is, they're never going to be able to be any more than what they are. Empowerment means that you have to decrease so your subordinates increase. Step aside, step down. It's a lot more than delegation. Doesn't matter that you would have done it differently, and it also creates buy-in. Being accomplished, Ben Franklin said that. Employ your time improving yourself by other men's writing so that you shall gain easily what others have labored hard for. It's so easy to read great books, take an extra online class or a certification class here, engage with people, and sometimes just get out and smell the roses. Observe the world around you. Great leaders all do these things. And the last one is loyal. Dr. King said, in the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. People that stood with you through the hard times. People are going to remember a lasting legacy is going to be the person that actually stood there and was loyal to the organization, that was available to their people, faithful to that organization and devoted to the cause. The law of the harvest, let me just finish up with this, and I'll end on the law of the harvest, if I can get back to it. Maybe I can't. There we go. We've heard of the law of the harvest. Most of you have. You reap what you sow, right? The part that we don't really realize is there are two other parts to that. You always reap more than what you sow, and you always reap what you have sown in a different season. That's the law of the harvest. Which means that if I sow strife and discontent in this organization, I will get back strife and discontent. I can't plant corn and get butter beans. All right? So if I plant good stuff, I'm going to get good stuff back. Y'all with me? And it doesn't always come in the same season. So if I plant strife and discontent in this organization right now, it's not necessarily going to come back to me tomorrow. It might be 2 years. It's got to be cultivated, right? But it's going to come back because I planted butter beans. I'm not getting corn. And you're always going to get more. You plant one seed, you get a whole stalk of something else. So I would submit to you, if you want to really leave that legacy leadership, plant the good stuff. Think about the law of the harvest. Take a good look at yourself internally and say, what can I do better? How can I better myself? How can I get my character traits to be better? Because at the end of the day, you will then be a leader of character and people will follow you out of respect. And it'll create that legacy that we're talking about. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.